this last couple days, I've gotten about 1,500 pages worth of records requests from the college and been going through them. And I found this startling letter by a faculty member who I won't mention whose name, and I didn't ask her permission to read this, but I think it really gives you guys an insight of the quality of the Evergreen teachers. So, dear colleagues, I'm writing to those of you who expressed unequivocal public support for the student protesters, and to some other colleagues and faculty leaders. I've already informed the administration and my close friends about these things, but I think faculty leadership broadly conceived is, in fact, essential to finding a way forward that strengthens rather than weakens the college. While I am appalled that Brett went on Fox and continues to feed a destructive narrative about the college that puts our colleagues in danger, we have long laid the groundwork for the recent series of events. Brett's decisions are completely consistent with who he is and what the college has long tolerated from faculty who are not held accountable for many different kinds of things. The students' methods of protest are also completely consistent with what Evergreen is coming to be, an institution that sacrifices inquiry for activism. Last week's protest strategy violated the social contract and possibly the law. From what I could see, most, if not all, of the major trespassers were white ally students who are motivated to act and did so at times without thinking. Some of the methods they chose put the very people they claim to speak for at risk. It's no surprise that activism is risky, unless you don't know a lot about the history of activism. But if some of these methods continue, they will foster a truly hostile and inhospitable environment for teaching and learning to occur. Here's what happened. 1. Individual faculty and staff were scapegoated. Brett Weinstein and Andy Siebert Olson were publicly humiliated and threatened on campus, with the promise of more such threats to come, directed at a list of others. They were denigrated and cursed at, and graffiti demanding that their employment be terminated was written all over the SEM2 buildings last Wednesday morning. No matter how critical you may be of either of these colleagues, this kind of activity crosses a fragile line, fragile not in the white fragility way, but because the institution's strength is not in its bricks and mortar, but in how people engage with each other and how true they are to the responsibilities with which they are trusted. Student activists gain license to harass and intimidate members of the Evergreen community in an effort to achieve their ends. Last Wednesday, on 2 separate occasions, I was followed by white students who yelled and cursed at me, accused me of not caring about black and brown bodies, and claimed that if I did care, I would follow their orders and join the protest in the library. They stood in front of me, blocking my way as I attempted to walk across campus. In the first occasion, 3 female students and 1 male who claimed to not be a student surrounded me with raised voices and twisted my words when I responded to them. When I stopped to try to talk with them, they refused to actually engage in conversation. The only thing they would accept was my obedience, which, you won't be surprised to learn, I was not going to give. They followed me all the way across Red Square to SEM2, all the while berating me. By the time I got to the venue for the faculty meeting, I was shaking. When I left the faculty meeting, I was followed by 2 new students who were waiting outside the door for me. These 2 followed me and asserted that nothing I could possibly be doing was more important than following their orders. If I did have something important to do, I should tell them what it is so they could evaluate whether my decision to leave was valid. I tried to get them to question their own assumptions, but they were incapable of engaging in dialogue. Their passions were running too high, high enough to violate principles on which this institution depends to exist at all. All they could say to me was, imagine what it's like for black and brown people to experience that kind of threat all the time. They have no idea how or whether throughout my life and in spite of appearances, my white skin, I may have had to deal with and overcome intimidation, threat, and harassment. I'm not saying that my trauma is worse or more important or the same as that of people of color. I'm not competing with anybody. But it's simply wrong to erase someone's humanity in the name of not erasing someone else's. And while this was a terrible experience for me, I am much more concerned with the students' lack of understanding of what they allowed themselves to do, which was to willingly erase their own humanity by treating me in the way they did. I'm telling you about this because I'm also concerned that the students are being egged on by faculty who approve of this kind of thing and ignore the tactics for the sake of the goal. Some of you, in essence, are telling the students to do it again. Maybe they'll show up in my classroom next week and demand my resignation because I'm a racist. I wouldn't be at all surprised. I agree that the character of student activism is linked to our long failures at equity. But if all that happens is bias training, I fear that the equity issues around inquiry and academics, so well articulated in the equity report, I take issue with that, will actually get worse and will continue to fail the most vulnerable students whom we omit. This is on us, we faculty. We need to hold each other accountable as teachers for the essential goods of education, even if it means rethinking the terms of our own freedom as faculty. I believe it is the faculty's responsibility to create and adhere to policies that serve students as students. Excellent point. And strengthen the institutional guidelines that ensure a learning environment worthy of the name. I hear the students' grievances as an outcry primarily for reliable teaching, which means, in addition to bias training, faculty accountability for strong teams and attention to students' work. If bias training is the central method of addressing the students' issues, some of those issues will actually be exacerbated. Unless bias training is accompanied by some version of the following, we will continue to fail our students of color, as well as other students, and equity gaps will grow and not shrink. 1. Reading and writing assessment of all incoming students to determine which students are not college ready. This used to be common practice at Evergreen. Here is an excerpt from an Evergreen newsletter from March 1988. All new students take diagnostic tests through the Learning Resource Center. If someone has problems in a specific area, like reading, comprehension, or grammar, we send them a letter recommending they get help, whether it's with us or with a faculty member. I do not know when this testing stopped, but it was a mistake and should be remedied as soon as possible. 2. Mandatory support for students who are not college ready to bring their skills up to speed. Again, the Learning Resource Center, precursor to the Writing Center, which I have a story about we'll not get into now, used to offer this support. Such support could be offered through a writing center which, in addition to its current emphasis on cultivating student voice, actually addresses the need of our most at-risk students to become college-level readers and writers. This is an awesome faculty member. 3. Faculty accountability for these items in the CBA. I don't know what CBA is. From my years as an academic advisor, as well as experience working with over 20 teaching partners, I can tell you that I know that all faculty do not know how to function as a team. Not all faculty participate in a faculty seminar each year, and not all faculty pay attention to student work. Some faculty require written work and then refuse to comment on it. Some students are granted credit they did not earn, and even full credit, no matter what they do. There's another story coming about that. Often students of color are the ones whose work does not garner careful faculty attention. Parentheses. I have met many students of color for whom I was the first Evergreen faculty member to actually notice their reading and writing deficits and work to help them address them. Again, bias training is likely to exacerbate this latter problem. Some of you, this is in bold, some of you, colleagues, are guilty of these kinds of neglect, and you know it. I know it because students have told me, and some of you are the ones who are most publicly supportive of this protest. Just remember what good teaching entails, according to the CBA. 621. Teaching well. A faculty member is expected to teach well as judged by peers, students, the deans, and the provost. Teaching well includes A. Demonstrating command of the curricular material and the means for helping students learn it. Solid. B. When teaching in teams, meeting team teaching requirements. D. Fostering students' intellectual and cognitive development. Isn't that what a teacher is? E. Fostering students' abilities to communicate well. Isn't that something that these kids need to learn? Not kids, students. F. Displaying intellectual vitality. I think I mentioned that before. And she continues, this faculty continues. To make matters worse, I know that some faculty tell students how to evaluate them and ask them to put good reviews on the website called Rate My Professors. This is deeply unethical and destroys the aim of student evaluations of faculty. Ooh. Thank you for reading this. I would be glad to discuss this with any of you, if you wish. We are in a shameful but also a hopeful state of affairs at the college, and I am committed to helping us address it. Unless we acknowledge our own collective culpability in neglecting our students' education in the ways the CBA outlines, I fear the worst for the college's future. This is the dirty underbelly beneath the news that the rest of the world is reading. Sincerely, signed, this awesome freaking professor. So no. There are some awesome freaking faculty at this college. Totally just faculty that'll blow your mind, that will open it up and point to things that you need to fix and then send you on your way. These are excellent people here. And Evergreen faculty, Evergreen teachers need to let go of their freaking political jihad or whatever we want to call it and actually turn their attention back to what a college is for. What is a college for? Well, this letter is an excellent example of somebody who actually knows what a college is for. All right. You all have a good night. Ciao.